So imagine this, right? You're 21, you've just flown back from a 4-day weekend in Amsterdam with two of your mates, you've drank everything on site, you've smoked constantly, you've done shrooms, you've done literally everything Amsterdam has to offer. An unbelievable weekend, you've lived the life. But now it's Tuesday morning, you're sat at your desk, you're a system consultant working for a software house at 21 years old, and there's a developer who stood over you asking you a question. You decide to respond with a blank expression, but you build up the courage to ask him to repeat it. He repeats it. You then ask him again, but you see that dreaded smirk creep across his face, and he knows what's up. You start to hear jokes getting made around the office, and they were right to make them, by the way, because I'd have done the exact same. But I was sat in that state of fog for 2 weeks, generally 2 full weeks before my head come back online, and that was the moment I realised I had to stop. And before I get into this video, I just want to say I posted my first video last week, and that was about me trying to find a job for 8 months, where I've posted 500 plus job applications. By some act of God, I actually received 2 job offers this week on the back of that video, which I'm blown away by it, and I just feel so grateful. And for the people who actually decided to check out my video, it's going up to 60 views at this moment in time. I've got 2 subscribers, which is brilliant because I didn't think anyone was going to view the video. Had quite a few people comment on it, so thanks for your feedback, and let's get into it. So long ago, when I was 17, which was 13 years ago, which is terrifying to think, I decided that I wanted to try weed for the first time. And I had mates who were doing it a bit longer than myself. I was a bit behind the curve. I was a bit nervous about doing it, honestly. I had a pretty good relationship with my mum and my stepdad. They were young once. They said to me, we don't want you sneaking or lying to us. If you're going to do drugs, we can't stop you. But if you're going to live in our house, then please at least respect that. We want to make sure that you're okay at all times. And if you've got some stories, of course, we want to hear it. And it was a fantastic bit of parenting now looking back on it. But for the first few years, from 17 to about 19, 20, I'll give it this. It was pretty funny. It was good. It was good time spending time with your boys and, seeing them every day. We'd all pile into cars. We'd drive out to some random spot and sit in a circle, or we would even just stay in the cars and smoke, talk, order a takeaway, or we'd go back to someone's house or even back to our own house at 2, 3 in the morning and play Xbox till whenever. And that was amazing. That was the life as far as we were concerned as young adults. And that was an every weekend thing. I mean, it slowly crept into every weekend, and then it slowly crept into every weeknight, if I'm being honest with you. And here's the lie we told ourselves. This was the justification. This one line. There's nothing else to do. A couple of lads from a Midland town had nothing else to do at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20. For many years, apparently, and that was the justification, as I said, we used for years. And the truth was is that we had families, we had jobs, we were massively into the gym at that point, we had hobbies we could have done, like football. We could have done literally anything, but we chose this because it was easy, and because everyone else is doing it, and because when you're all in it together, you can't see out of it. And from 17 to about 19, 20, as I said, I'll be honest, it was a laugh, it was a good crack. But after that, looking back, I started catching glimpses of myself in the wing mirror in some, car park, or I would look at myself in the reflection of the window when the backlight was on, where I was curled over with a hood over and I hadn't spoken about 10, 20 minutes. I remember just thinking, what am I doing with my life? And I remember thinking, I've got to do something, but I just never had the motivation or courage to do it at that time. And anyone who's not from Britain, if you don't know what the weed culture is like, it might be similar to where you're from, whether it's America or somewhere else in Europe. But let me paint the picture for you. It's cold, it's raining, as it is always in the Great Britain. It's November, it's pissing it down. You're either stood in a circle in a car park or in the regular lay-by where you're trying to hide from the police because you don't want your friends to get done for driving under the influence of smoking weed, because that was a big fine. They were especially cracking down on it back when I was young, I remember that. And you've either got 4 or 5 of you huddled around one another trying to light a zoot, or you've got someone who sat in the front car, in the front driver's seat, trying to wrap the zoot on a DVD case, or you've got someone on Snapchat texting the dealer, "Are you close?" and constantly bitching about them because they haven't got their weed delivered to them in time, which is utterly hilarious. And I feel that is what would demonstrate, or if someone was to quickly ask me to summarise what the British weed culture is, that's exactly it. Being stood out in the cold, or being wrapped up in the car with the heaters blaring, not speaking to your friends, doom scrolling on Vine or Instagram or whatever it was at that time, and doing that every day. And that is the British weed culture, very simply. And we thought that was great. And I don't know why we did, but we thought that was great for many years. And that just had such a chokehold on us for, as I said, it had a chokehold on for me for about 2-3 years. And some of the lads I know, it took them a good 6-7 years to fall out of that, unfortunately. But here's the bit that nobody talks about. You don't notice when the fun stops. And there's no specific day where the funny stops. It just fades. The sessions start getting quieter. You'd sit in a car with 4 or 5 lads. Nobody would say anything for about half an hour. You would just hear phones. You would hear the reels on people's Vines and Instagram, and you'd hear the odd laugh, which of course someone would show you something and you'd all laugh together. Someone might make you jump because they might open the car door because someone's just gone to get food or Rizzlers or some Mayfair from the petrol station. But that was it. And I want to be really honest with you about what weed was doing for me personally, because I think this might explain, or maybe some of you might be able to relate, because it might not be that deep for you, but it was quite deep for me, now with a wiser and older head, at why I was doing that and why perhaps I was so lost and unable to get myself out of that situation after doing it even for 1 year. Like everyone, we all struggle with anxiety. That seems to be the buzzword over the past decade. But I certainly had high levels of self-doubt for whatever reason. Stuff that nagged at me in the quiet moments, the stuff that you don't really want to deal with when you're 19, 20. And weed masked all of that, every bit of it. And what I later realised and recognised, again upon reflection, is that weed suppresses the accountability you have. It hides the hard and honest questions you hold on to. And when you smoke every day for years and you never sit with any of those questions, you just smoke over the top of them, and the next day and the day after, and you end up doing that for years. And I don't know, looking back, it wasn't really about the weed. I think the weed was just the thing I used so I didn't have to think about anything else. And in April 2017, when me and my 2 mates, we went to Amsterdam, we had been a few times before that. It was just kind of our thing because we were really into smoking, we were really into, the drink scene. And that one trip, that was really different. I don't know why, but we just went all in. We drank everything in that city. We smoked constantly. We done shrooms every day. And look, we partied, we lived it. We saw the place every hour of the day and night. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the weekend wasn't a laugh in the moment, because it was. We had the best time. We've got some unbelievable stories to take away from that. And I think that's part of the problem with any of this. The moment is always fine. It's what comes after. And when I flew back on that Monday and I had to go straight into the office Tuesday morning, again, as a system consultant, being 21, trying to build a reputation, and there's a developer stood over you, asking you a question, you can't even answer a question that you should be able to do in your sleep. Staring at him, and I remember the smirk on his face, and when everyone in the office is starting to make jokes, it starts to become a bit sad. You can laugh at it at first, but if you take a step back and just think, what, I'm not mentally, I'm still in Amsterdam. And it wasn't like it just passed the day after. It took me I remember this, clear as day. It took me 2 full weeks before I felt like my brain was actually back in my head, and 2 weeks of fog, of being a step behind every conversation, of catching people giving me that look like, is he all right? Is there something wrong with him? And I know what you're thinking. Well, you did do everything Amsterdam literally had to offer. But I did smoke every day, and what actually led me to these sorts of trips was the smoking of weed. And I think that's the point of the story I'm trying to get into. When people would say weed is a gateway drug, you would always go, bore off, shut up, or maybe you just can't handle your vices. And I think these are all fair and valid criticisms, or even points that you should factor in if you're on this journey. But for me, if I'm honest with you, no one told me about the next part when trying to stop smoking weed, because I just thought I could stop and I'd feel amazing and I'd be able to run marathons and read countless books. But that's just not how it went. I'd still occasionally have a drag whenever I went back to my hometown. I'd like to sit here and tell you that I went cold turkey and never touched it again, but that's not what happened. And if you've ever tried to quit smoking weed after a long period of smoking, you understand where I'm coming from. You just can't really shake it, because you get these headaches, you get heightened levels of anxiety, even paranoia in some points, which is absolutely insane. And I just want to say, the point of this video isn't for me to make weed out to be the devil. I'm not here to demonize it, because we all have a freedom of choice. We can all choose to drink or smoke weed or do whatever we want. But when you pick something up and it becomes a daily habit, it's going to naturally have quite a big impact on your life, no matter what it is. And this is the part that I really wanted to get into, and this is the end part of the video, where these were the things that I really got back after kicking this habit. And I'm sure if anyone's been able to kick smoking weed, if you've done it for a long period of time like myself, you'll probably be able to relate. I could actually talk again. I was able to communicate. I was able to articulate sentences in their proper form. I could hold a thread in a conversation for more than 20 seconds. I wasn't constantly dribbling and just drawling my words out. And my motivation started to come back properly, towards hobbies. I picked up playing football again. I was actually had an interest in the world around me. And I started wanting things again. And that's the weird one, because you don't realise how much weed flattens your wanting. You're not depressed. You're not happy. You're just always in the middle. You're just on this monotone feeling of life. And no one ever tells you that. You never recognise that when you're in it. You only recognise it when you're out of it. And it kind of felt like this lust for life. It was like a muscle that I just hadn't used as like a young adult, and it was unbelievable and overwhelming when I first experienced this. And the big one for me, I got a wide-eyed view of my own problems, and I could actually see what was wrong with my life. I could see the mates I needed to see less of. I could see the habits I was covering up with more habits, and I could see the direction I'd been avoiding for many years because I didn't want to think about them. Weed suppresses the accountability you have, and it hides the hard and honest questions you hold. I said that earlier, and I'm saying it again because honestly, that's the whole thing. When you take weed out of the equation, those questions come back and they don't go anywhere. You just don't want to ask them, so they're just always there, and they just wait. And I'd rather have answered mine at 22 than still being 32 and avoiding them. And look, I know this might sound like a video that I've just completely bashed weed, and if I haven't done my job in this commentary to really get my points across, it's not that I'm trying to demonise weed, and I wouldn't demonise alcohol. Of course, they are substances, they are drugs, and they should be taken so you can enjoy them. And that's the main point I'm trying to say in this. No one really teaches you how to be an adult and to recognise what habits you're picking up, because 1 year can turn to 2 and then 2 will turn to 5, and before you know it, you've been on this substance for 5 years. These things should be used for fun, and that might sound really obvious to people who've actually got some sense of judgment on themselves, but as a young man when I was 17, 18, that's something I lacked quite clearly. And when I look at people from my hometown who are doing that and falling for the same mistakes as me, especially within Britain, it's almost like a rite of passage. Enjoy these things, don't depend on them. But if any of that sounded familiar to you, even if you struggled getting off weed or even getting off booze, let me know how you got on, or if you're still trying to get through that, because if you are trying to get through that, you'll be fine. Just keep your head up and try and find some sort of purpose. And I think that's why so many people fall into the marathon scene, because they need some sort of fitness or they need some sort of long-term goal, which is just so extreme to get them out of that hole. But if you are going for that, I hope you're all good. And if you enjoyed this one, please stick around, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.